You were not taught morality to make you strong. You were taught morality to make you predictable. From childhood, society installs a lens in your mind, a filter through which you interpret behavior, danger, and power. This lens tells you that being agreeable is noble, that transparency is honest, that fairness is strength. None of this is neutral. It is conditioning, and its primary function is not harmony, but control. Morality, as practiced in public life, is not a compass. It is a leash. Under this lens, you believe actions are judged by intent. In reality, they are judged by outcome and signal. Society does not reward goodness. It rewards usefulness. It does not punish evil. It punishes threat. The moment you confuse moral intent with social safety, you step into a trap older than written law. Look closely at how good men are treated. They are trusted with responsibility but denied authority. They are praised verbally and exploited materially. They are kept close, never elevated. This is not accidental. This is selection pressure. The system keeps compliant men functional, visible, and harmless. The false moral lens teaches you to externalize judgment. You look outward for approval, consensus, validation. You adjust your behavior based on applause and disapproval, not consequence. This makes you legible. Legibility is not safety. Legibility is exposure. Predators, human or institutional, do not hunt chaos. They hunt clarity. The man who openly displays his values, emotions, limits, and intentions is easy to map. Once mapped, he can be maneuvered. Once maneuvered, he can be discarded. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that morality preached by power is never morality practiced by power. Rulers speak of virtue while operating on necessity. Institutions demand honesty while rewarding discretion. The crowd glorifies sacrifice while consuming the sacrificer. Yet, you were trained to reverse this logic. You were told loyalty is proof of character. In reality, loyalty without leverage is submission. You were told humility is strength. In reality, humility displayed prematurely is an invitation to dominance. You were told fairness earns respect. In reality, fairness without enforcement signals weakness. The false moral lens converts survival errors into virtues. It convinces you that restraint is cowardice, that silence is guilt, that aggression is immorality. This ensures you hesitate precisely when decisiveness is required. Understand this clearly. Society does not collapse because of immoral men. It functions because moral men absorb the cost. When you follow the false lens, you act before you assess. You explain before you observe. You give before you measure. Each action leaks information. Each leak reduces your strategic depth. Over time, your social position erodes not through open attack, but through quiet reassignment. You are sidelined, overlooked, respected into irrelevance. This is not cruelty. It is mechanics. Social systems reward those who control perception, timing, and access. Morality that demands immediate disclosure, consistent behavior, and emotional transparency strips you of all three. It turns you into a public resource rather than a private force. The most dangerous lie embedded in the moral lens is this, that society is cooperative by default. It is not. It is competitive with cooperative veneers. Those who mistake the veneer for the structure are consumed by the structure. This chapter is not asking you to become immoral. It is stripping you of naivety. Before any action can be judged as forbidden, you must first see clearly. You must remove the lens that equates goodness with safety and visibility with virtue. Until then, every move you make is compromised before it begins. The next step is to expose the mechanism that enforces this lens, how weakness is detected. rewarded superficially and punished structurally. Society does not correct behavior. It selects against it. What you experience as feedback, consequences, or social response is not moral judgment, it is filtration. Every environment silently ranks men by threat level, utility, and controllability. Those rankings determine access, protection, and advancement. Everything else is theater. Selection is not announced. It is enacted. The mechanism is simple. Behavior reveals position. Position determines treatment. Treatment shapes outcome. At no point does intention matter. At no point does fairness intervene. The system is blind to effort and ruthless toward exposure. Weakness is not punished directly. It is documented. When you over-explain, you signal uncertainty. When you seek consensus, you signal dependency. When you act morally without leverage, you signal containment. Each signal is logged by people, groups, and institutions that survive by reading patterns faster than you do. Once read, you are categorized. Once categorized, you are managed. This is why visibly good men are surrounded but never followed. They are safe to be near, safe to delegate to, safe to exploit. They absorb risk without threatening hierarchy. The system protects them just enough to keep them operational. Selection favors opacity. The man who withholds information cannot be fully mapped. The man who delays reaction cannot be easily provoked. The man who violates expectation forces recalculation. These men introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is expensive. Power avoids cost, so it accommodates, negotiates, or neutralizes. This is why moral consistency is dangerous. Predictability is the currency predators trade in. You are trained to behave consistently so others can trust you. In reality, consistency makes you forecastable. Once forecastable, your range collapses. Others act around you, not with you. You become infrastructure. Selection also operates through asymmetry. You are encouraged to reveal while others conceal. You are asked to be accountable while institutions remain abstract. You are told to be yourself while systems never disclose their true incentives. This asymmetry is not accidental. It is structural. The man who reveals early loses optionality. He commits before the field is visible. He locks himself into positions others can exploit later. Meanwhile, those above him remain undefined, adaptable, and untraceable. Notice who is punished publicly. It is rarely the dangerous. It is the disobedient or the exposed. True threats are handled quietly or elevated strategically. Moral outrage is reserved for those already stripped of leverage. Selection is enforced socially before it is enforced formally. Ridicule precedes exclusion. Exclusion precedes irrelevance. By the time rules are invoked, the outcome is already decided. And here is the most corrosive truth. Selection rewards the appearance of virtue, not its substance. Saying the correct things protects you. Doing the correct things without visibility does nothing. Doing the incorrect things discreetly often advances you. This creates a split reality. One layer speaks morality. The other layer enacts necessity. Men who confuse the layers are consumed between them. Machiavelli warned that men who rely on goodness alone are destroyed among those who are not good. He was not advocating cruelty. He was describing physics. Gravity does not hate you. It does not care. The mechanism selects for those who understand timing, silence, and controlled deviation. Those who cannot tolerate moral ambiguity are filtered downward not because they are wrong, but because they are fragile. If this unsettles you, it should. That discomfort is the sound of a belief dying, because once you see the mechanism, you can no longer unsee it. And once you understand selection, you must confront the patterns of behavior that guarantee demotion. Those patterns are not random. They repeat. They cluster. They form archetypes. That is where we go next. The system does not punish mistakes. It punishes patterns. What you call actions are not isolated events. They are repeated signals. Over time, these signals solidify into archetypes, behavioral roles that society recognizes instantly and exploits efficiently. Once you fall into one, escape becomes expensive. These are the 10 actions you are taught to admire, yet should never perform in open society if you value position, leverage, or survival. 1. Voluntary transparency, revealing your intentions. Struggles or plans without pressure is not honesty, it is self-surveillance. You save others the work of mapping you. Information, once given, is never returned. Point 2. Moral exhibition, publicly signaling virtue, outrage, righteousness. Doing the right thing does not elevate you. It aligns you. Alignment makes you replaceable. The system rewards conformity disguised as courage. 3. Premature loyalty. Loyalty before power assessment is submission. You bind yourself to structures that have not earned restraint. Once bound, your exit becomes betrayal, not strategy. 4. Explaining yourself to the uninvested justification is a downward signal. Those who matter do not require explanation. Those who don't will weaponize it. Each explanation weakens your frame. Point 5. Emotional disclosure under pressure. Stress reveals hierarchy. The man who leaks emotion during conflict exposes his thresholds. Once known, those thresholds are tested repeatedly. 6. Appealing to fairness. Fairness is invoked by the powerless to restrain the powerful. When you appeal to it, you declare your position. Power does not negotiate on ethics, it calculates on cost. Point 7. Consistent. Niceness, predictable kindness creates entitlement. Entitlement invites disrespect. Respect requires the possibility of withdrawal or retaliation. 8. Public. Self-criticism, admitting fault publicly, does not purify you, it brands you. Institutions remember weakness longer than improvement. Self-flagellation is permanent record creation. 9. Immediate reaction, responding instantly, whether to insult, demand, or crisis, signals lack of control. Delay forces others to sit with uncertainty. Uncertainty shifts leverage. 10. Seeking consensus before action, asking permission diffuses authority. By the time consensus forms, the window is gone. Decisive men act, then justify selectively. Each of these behaviors feels right because they were installed as virtues. But in practice, they mark you as safe to extract from, easy to guide, and simple to replace. Notice the common thread: visibility. Without leverage. These actions expose your internal state while offering no strategic return. They collapse the distance between who you are and what you can be used for. Once collapsed, your role is fixed. Archetypes are efficient. Society prefers them because they reduce uncertainty. The compliant worker, the moral crusader, the loyal subordinate. Each plays his part. None rule the board. Machiavelli did not warn against goodness. He warned against goodness without teeth. A man who cannot conceal, delay, or withhold is not virtuous, he is unarmed. You may recognize yourself in one or more of these traps. That recognition is not redemption. It is diagnosis, because these patterns do not merely reduce status. Historically, they have erased men entirely politically, socially, sometimes physically. To understand the depth of the threat, you must see how these same behaviors played out when the cost of weakness was not embarrassment, but extinction. That is the next layer. Modern men believe the penalty for social error is embarrassment. History tells a different story. Before weakness was managed with demotions, shadow bans, and quiet exclusion, it was managed with exile, imprisonment, or death. The environment changed. The selection logic did not. The same behaviors that now cost you status once cost men their bloodlines. Those who survived history were not the most moral. They were the most adaptive. Look at courts, empires, and revolutions. The men who fell were rarely incompetent. They were exposed. They spoke when silence was required. They trusted loyalty that was not enforced. They displayed virtue in arenas governed by power. Seneca preached restraint while serving tyrants. His moral posture did not protect him when he became inconvenient. Cicero appealed to republican ideals while Rome had already shifted to dominance politics. His eloquence earned admiration. It also earned him execution. These men were not weak intellectually. They were misaligned with reality. Public virtue in violent systems is interpreted as either naivety or challenge. Both are dangerous. The first invites manipulation. The second invites elimination. In neither case are you rewarded for purity of intent. During purges and power transitions, the most lethal trait was visibility. Those who documented their beliefs, declared their loyalties, or aligned themselves publicly were easy to identify once the tide turned. The survivors were ambiguous. Their records were thin. Their commitments were private and reversible. This is not cowardice. This is evolutionary intelligence. Human nature has not improved. It has been cosmetically restrained. When resources tighten or hierarchies destabilize, the same instincts resurface. Men revert to pattern recognition, threat elimination, and opportunistic advancement. The system remembers who complies loudly and who moves quietly, even outside politics. This dynamic persists. Guilds, corporations, religious institutions, each one praises sacrifice while extracting it from the same type of man repeatedly. Those who say yes too quickly are given more burden, not more power. History shows that moral behavior without strategic positioning attracts consumption. The virtuous become symbols. Symbols are expendable, and here is the darker truth. Weakness invites not only attack, but rationalization. Once you are labeled weak, others feel justified in exploiting you. They tell themselves it is efficiency, necessity, or order. Violence, social or physical, always cloaks itself in reason. This is why appeals to ethics fail during crises. Ethics are luxuries of stability. When survival is questioned, power answers only to itself. You live in a sanitized version of this reality. The penalties are softer, the language gentler, the consequences slower. But the arc is the same. Men who reveal too much, commit too early, and rely on fairness are filtered out of relevance. History is not a warning. It is a pattern library. If you do not adjust behavior, you do not opt out. You volunteer. Understanding the threat is not enough. Awareness without response still ends in erasure. The system does not spare the informed, it tests them harder. The only viable move is behavioral replacement, not rebellion, not morality, strategy. That requires reprogramming how you act, speak, and withhold in public life. That is where we go next. Once you see the trap, moral outrage is useless. Survival requires replacement, not protest. Strategic reprogramming is the deliberate removal of instinctive behavior and its substitution with controlled response. This is not about becoming cruel. It is about becoming unreadable. The system cannot exploit what it cannot predict. The first replacement is silence over expression. Silence is not passivity, it is pressure. When you do not explain, others must infer. Inference creates error. Error creates leverage. Every unanswered question shifts the burden away from you. You were trained to fill gaps. Stop doing that. Gaps are weapons. The second replacement is delay over reaction. Immediate response is a confession of importance. Delay forces the other side to reveal urgency, weakness, or impatience. Time is the only resource that multiplies power when withheld. Controlled delay destabilizes narratives. It denies momentum. It reframes you as a variable rather than a constant. The third replacement is selective morality. Morality is not abandoned, it is privatized. You act ethically where it compounds trust and invisibly where it compounds position. Public morality is reduced to compliance signals, not personal conviction. This is how power operates without appearing immoral. Next is asymmetric disclosure. You reveal what costs you nothing and conceal what defines you. Plans, ambitions, thresholds, alliances, these are never volunteered. They are deployed only when extraction is guaranteed. Information is currency. Spend it like a strategist, not a confessor. Then comes conditional loyalty. You stop attaching identity to structures, roles, or people. Loyalty becomes transactional, revocable, and measured. This does not make you untrustworthy, it makes you unexploitable. Those above you practice this already. You are simply catching up. Another critical shift is controlled unpredictability. Consistency is replaced with pattern breaking. Occasionally you refuse. Occasionally you withdraw. Occasionally you advance without explanation. This forces recalibration. Recalibration consumes resources. Men who are expensive to read are expensive to dominate. Finally, you adopt quiet enforcement. Boundaries are not announced. They are demonstrated once. Consequences are applied privately, decisively, and without emotional display. Public enforcement invites challenge. Private enforcement creates memory. This reprogramming feels unnatural at first because it violates your conditioning. That discomfort is the sound of dependency leaving your system. You are not becoming antisocial. You are becoming sovereign. Sovereignty is not dominance. It is the refusal to be managed. It is the ability to act without asking permission and withdraw without explanation. This chapter installs tools. The final step is more violent. Because tools alone are not enough. An identity built on compliance cannot wield them. That identity must be terminated. No transformation occurs without execution. What survives is what adapts. What adapts is what replaces. The socially harmless man is not evil. He is obsolete. This identity was engineered to function inside systems that no longer exist, systems where cooperation was rewarded, loyalty was reciprocated, and visibility signaled trust. Those conditions are gone. The identity remains. And it is being harvested. The harmless man believes danger is exceptional. In reality, it is ambient. He believes intentions matter. They do not. He believes being understood is safety. It is exposure. He believes morality protects him. It identifies him. This identity must die because it cannot coexist with strategic restraint. Every time you hesitate to withhold, every time you feel compelled to explain, every time you reveal to relieve tension, you resurrect it. Identity death is not symbolic. It is behavioral. You stop performing for approval. You stop narrating your internal state. You stop advertising your values as credentials. The harmless man seeks alignment. The sovereign man seeks position. Position is not taken by force. It is occupied by absence. When you remove predictability, others project. When they project, they reveal. When they reveal, you decide. This is the replacement identity, the unreadable operator. He is not loud. He is not virtuous in public. He is not reactive. He moves late and speaks last. He lets others declare, commit, and collapse into their own words. He does not rush to define himself, because definition is confinement. The death of the harmless man also means the death of moral exhibition. You no longer need to be seen as good. You need to be difficult to categorize. Categorization is the first step of control. This is why true power often looks boring, distant, even cold. It does not seek emotional reward. It seeks structural advantage. There will be resistance internally and externally. Internally, guilt will surface. You were trained to equate withholding with deceit. That training served someone else's stability, not your survival. Externally, people will test you. When your behavior shifts, it destabilizes roles. Those who benefited from your openness will push for your return. They will call you changed, selfish, or dangerous. That is confirmation. Every system resists the loss of a reliable resource. You do not argue. You do not explain. Explanation is regression. You allow the new equilibrium to form around your absence of compliance. Over time, something irreversible happens. You are no longer managed. You are accounted for. The system does not need to like you. It needs to respect the cost of miscalculating you. That is sovereignty. The harmless man dies quietly. No one mourns him except those who fed on him. What remains is not cruel, not moral, not visible. It is selected, if you want. The final step is to seal this with a closing warning and an elite call to action, the point of no return. This is not a philosophy. It is a deadline. Selection does not wait for your agreement. It is already classifying you based on what you reveal, tolerate, and repeat. Every interaction updates your file. Every hesitation lowers your ceiling. You do not rise by being good. You rise by being costly to misjudge. The world you are navigating is not fair, not stable, and not moral in execution. It rewards those who understand optics over intentions, leverage over loyalty, silence over sincerity. Men who refuse this reality are not spared, they are repurposed. Here is the final warning. You will be used either as an operator or as a buffer. Buffers absorb pressure so others can advance. They are praised, overworked, and discarded without ceremony. Operators absorb nothing they did not choose. They are not thanked. They are not celebrated. They are left alone and left intact. If you continue performing the forbidden actions, public virtue, emotional disclosure, premature loyalty, reactive behavior, you are volunteering for selection downward. No enemy is required. The system will handle it. This is the last inversion you must accept. Being liked is a liability. Being understood is a weakness. Being indispensable is a trap. The elite do not seek indispensability. They seek replaceability with leverage, the ability to exit without, collapse and re-enter on their own terms. This is your line. On one side is visibility, approval, and slow erosion. On the other is restraint, ambiguity, and sovereignty. No announcement is required. No declaration is advised. Those are the habits of the harmless man. You change quietly, or you remain legible. And legible men do not survive selection. They are selected against.